The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello again. It's been a while since our last show, but the town had delivered a session, the school delivered a session, so we sort of had to fill in. And with me today is Glenn Cordelli. And Glenn, introduce yourself.
Hi, Glenn Cordelli. I am a state representative for Tuftonboro, Wolfboro, and Ossipee up by Lake Winnipesaukee. And I'm in my sixth term. And I'm vice chairman of the House Education Committee.
Right, we're both chairmen and vice. The joke. Because I'm vice chairman of election law, and I've been on education for
Correct.
6 terms. So,
Yep.
and this is my second term on election law. That was my first term many years ago. Okay.
Oh, really?
So we're going to look at some bills that were passed in the last few weeks, months or so. But first thing, we had the deliberative session last week, and the numbers. Let's look at the numbers for the new school in Litchfield and how much it's going to cost you. So,
I heard it's quite interesting.
yes. Now, for example, the first year in 2025, which is next year's taxes, you're only going to get okay, the tax rate's got to go up. If your house is $250,000, $11, $13, $15, because that's the building aid is paying most of that.
Right.
Then in 2026, you can see how it's going to increase. 2028, 4 years after you start paying, your taxes are going to go from, if your house is at $250,000, if your house is $400,000, you can see the difference, $820 to $1,300.
Wow.
And then then it starts going down, and then it's going to end with the last year of the 2042. It's only going to be $648. So if your house is $400,000, which most of the houses now are getting up there, because that's one of the problems. We're also going to do a reassessment next year on the town side. So those houses, but then it's, I always say, A times B is C. C is constant, where that's how much money's got to be raised. A is the tax rate. B is what your value. So if your assessed value goes up, your taxes should go down, because you got to equal the amount of taxes you have town's got to collect. So, and the rule is always 1/3 pays the same, 1/3 pays more, and 1/3 pays less. And that's how it usually works when there's reassessments being done. And that's something to think about. The only reason we have to do reassessments is because of the SWEP. Every 5 years there's got to be a reassessment.
SWEP is the statewide education property tax. We know that well.
Right, and that's why I've been saying, let's get rid of it. But anyway, because the money doesn't leave the town.
Right.
But anyway, so I just wanted to make sure we all knew that, because with higher prices for everything else, I know I'm paying nearly double for heating oil in my house. The car insurance has gone up, and remember, last year your taxes went up 20%. I don't know, you just remember that, okay? So just wanted to let you all know. So that's coming up in March 12th, I believe it is, for election day.
Yep.
So that's interesting. So
very interesting for a lot of people, it seems like.
Yeah, and somebody made up, when I was on the school board back in 15 years ago, we put in for a building, and like somebody mentioned, and that failed. Needs 3/5 for the building, and that failed then. And somebody made mention, just think if we pass it then, it would be nearly paid off.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, we still need the building, but can we afford it? And that's the only thing. I'm not saying how I'm voting. I'm just giving you the number.
How does your enrollment look?
The enrollment, when I was on the school board, we'll say 20 years ago, 15, 20, we had 1,500 kids total, 500 like in each school. Now there's 900 total. But they're adding the new houses and whatnot going up. And the enrollment looks like it might increase, but we'll cover that in a bit with EFAs and whatnot, because I know like St. Francis is expanding and other schools are expanding. So we'll see what happens with that. So I think now we'll pass over to Glenn to look at some of the bills that we worked on this past week. And one of the things, starting with EFAs, and I know in Education Committee, which Glenn, as you mentioned, they have more than 100 bills.
Right, for the third year in a row.
I know.
So education
Which I'm
is a
glad
hot
I'm not
topic.
there this year. We only have 40 and we're going to finish them next week. But
Yeah, we're there
Election law.
4 or 5, sometimes 5 days a week.
I know, so EFA bills, and
Right.
how many have we had, and what
We've-
passed, and
Yeah, we always have a mix of bills to try and enhance eligibility for education freedom accounts, and the other side always has multiple bills, half dozen at least, trying to chip away at the education freedom account program. And we were actually had last week 3 EFA bills, one of which would have eliminated the family income cap, which is 350% of federal poverty right now, and made it a universal eligibility, no income cap at all for families, so anyone could get an education freedom account for their children. We had one that was very interesting, that it had new categories of students that would be eligible without an income cap. Things like students who were gay or lesbian, students who lived in an area where there was high PFAS levels, multiple categories such as that. And we thought that might have a chance and get some Democrat votes, but that did not pass either.
no.
But one did pass, and that was my bill to increase the family eligibility cap from 350% of poverty to 500% of federal poverty. So it would go up for a family of 2, a mom and a child, to $91,000 a year if it gets passed in the Senate and signed by the governor. And that's interesting, that $91,000 level is the 2022 level, and the median family income for a family of 2 for the state was $87,000. So it's just above median family income that we're talking about for this increased eligibility for families. But it's a very popular program, and really gives students the opportunity to find the education that meets their individual needs.
Right. Not
But
every-
the vast majority of kids, will continue going to public schools, but there are some kids where it's just not working for them, and they deserve an opportunity for a better education.
Right, and around here, there are a couple, Academy of Science and Design in Nashua, which is a STEM charter school.
Right, one of the
Charter
best
schools.
one of the best schools
One
in the
of the
state.
best in the state.
Yes, right.
And then just north of us, in Manchester, on North Permanent Road, is Founders Academy,
Right.
which is also rated pretty high up there. And they go from, I believe, 5th grade to senior, 12th grade. And they're rated pretty good, too.
Yeah.
So, and they're expanding. They've been expanding. So, I mean, and that's where a lot of kids from, I know Litchfield go to both, but also then they have all the private schools in the area, like St. Francis and Bishop Girton and Trinity and whatever. So,
So kids around here really have a lot of options
Yeah.
available to them. Yeah, it's not quite as many up in
No,
my area by Lake Winnipesaukee.
Yeah, that's why we changed the law many years ago for charter schools.
Right.
Because it used to be, it can't be more than 10% of your school population. Well, wait a minute.
Right.
That's your whole school. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So,
Yeah. And we do have a new charter school that will open in my district hopefully next September. They're working on renovations of an old county courthouse right now to try and get that up and running.
Yeah, and charter schools are public schools. Anybody
That's
go
right.
to them. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just the lottery usually for getting in. Yeah.
Right.
And because they are limited in space. But then the EFA covers, but not, the EFA doesn't cover that because it's a public school.
Right.
But the EFA covers all the private schools.
Right.
St. Francis, for example, and Bishop Girton and all those. So
Right.
It
And
might-
even if you want to homeschool, you can use an EFA to buy a curriculum, a computer, et cetera.
Right.
So,
And the difference is there's an EFA homeschool and then homeschools.
right.
I mean, there's homeschools where people don't want anything to do with the state, then they don't get the money.
Right.
Okay, the Education Freedom Account, they get the money same as the public school gets. So that's the whole thing with public education. Public education, somebody made this comment yesterday, public education does not mean public schools. So,
Right. You can look at public education, meaning that we want to educate the public
Right.
and all the public. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
so anyway.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. Good.
So those are the EFAs, and we have more bills coming up in the near future.
Yeah.
But I think right now many of us would like to see just concentrating on getting the 500% increase through the Senate, and
Right,
we're
that was-
hopeful that the governor will sign it.
Was that 1665?
Yes, it is.
That
Right.
that was the bill yesterday. It passed by one vote.
Right, right.
One-
Very interesting in that that day we had a representative from Belknap County who was elected in the last election as a Democrat. He switched parties. So he became a Democrat last Thursday in advance of the vote, and he voted for the bill. And the bill won by one vote, 190 to 189.
Right,
So it was as tight as you can get.
yeah.
Um,
And most of these, there's a lot of EFA bills that are, like you mentioned, for fixing, adding more people than go, but then you have a lot of EFA bills that are trying to do away with it.
Right.
Right, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, there's been bills that have gone after the nonprofit that administers the program, bills that want to apply all sorts of additional regulations, and including, we have one coming up for the statewide assessment that's given in public schools.
Right.
They want that same test to be given in all private schools, and homeschoolers would have to take this statewide assessment, which is really causing quite an uproar. And for that hearing, I think we're going to have to hold it in a representatives hall, because we expect a crowd.
Yeah, because I think but I believe they do have to take some.
They have three options. Either they can keep a portfolio of their work that gets reviewed by a certified teacher. They could take the statewide assessment if they wanted to, or they could take some other nationally referenced test.
A national reference test.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like what's the
Iowa or
Iowa,
California
yeah.
achievement. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And I remember some years ago, there was a family that lived across the street from me, and a couple of their kids were being homeschooled. And the guy said, yeah, he brought his son into the school to take the state test. And, because he wanted to find,
Right.
and they said, and they came back with him, well, he's either a bit more in math, but he passed. for the 5th grade. He said, oh, he's only in the 4th. So, I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah, passed by one vote.
Yeah, homeschool kids are underestimated when it comes to their academic performance.
Oh, yeah, in a lot of cases, it's colleges don't even care. Come on in for homeschool
Right.
kids, because they know a lot of times they have. So, Erica Leon, who used to do the show with me, all her kids are homeschooled. So.
Yeah, one of the members of our education committee, a freshman this year, homeschooled her 9 children.
Oh, God. Well, homeschooling I think it's in the gray area that it's homeschool.
Right.
Because they have associations that...
Co-ops and all sorts of
this
things.
This family may
Yeah.
teach this subject, this family may teach, so it's...
Yeah.
And the materials are, available, online and those kind of things, so. Okay, now the next big bill we had the other day, HB 1419,
Yes.
obscene material in schools.
Yeah. This was a bill that I started last year, but it got tabled in the full House. So I brought back a new version this year after a lot of work over the summer and fall with the Attorney General's office. And it did 3 things. Basically, right now in our criminal obscenity statutes, education is exempt from obscenity laws. So I changed that to exempt only K-12 education. And I know from talking to the Attorney General that it's doubtful that there's going to be any prosecution under criminal statutes of someone in K-12 education. The second thing it did was put in place a minimum level process by which a parent can object to materials, and we're talking about materials that some parents might consider obscene, others that books that talk about suicide and rape and cutting yourself that might be very harmful to minors, and that's the focus of the bill. We want to make sure that we're not having schools make information available to children that are harmful to minors.
Right, and might want to check, the parents, check your elementary school and the middle school for what books are in the library. And there, for example, here's a page from somebody put in a book from different things. Is this appropriate for a 10-year-old? It shows about taking drugs. I cut off the bottom picture here because it probably wouldn't be allowable on TV. But this is for a 10-year-old in your schools.
Right. And is that cutting yourself too, right there?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, committing suicide, and then there was the whole thing on taking drugs. So it's want to double check, make sure that these books aren't in your elementary school.
And
this is nothing like burning books.
Right.
But, I mean, it's what's age appropriate. Just like, I remember when I was many years ago, wasn't that many years ago, if a teacher gave a 10-year-old this book, be fired for being a pedophile. But now it's open. You can do all of this. So
Right.
it's not right. I don't think anybody really thinks it's right, except for all the Democrats.
So, and that's, with this minimum process that we laid out, the last appeal can be to the State Board of Education.
Right.
Because it's in statute and has been for a long time that if a parent objects to anything that's going on in the school, one of the duties of the State Board is to hear those appeals.
Right.
So that was in the bill. And then under 2 conditions, you could go to court for civil penalties. And if the school did not follow the process that allowed you to complain, or if your complaint was found to be reasonable and that the book should be removed or removed in the section of the library, school library, but they didn't do it. So, for instance, if the State Board said, yes, this book should not be in an elementary school, right, and the school did not move it, then you could have the Attorney General or the Department of Education, or you yourself could file a complaint in court and possibly win civil penalties for each violation of the law.
Yeah, and yesterday when Glenn was presenting the bill, he was trying to read some of the material in these books, and immediately got objected to by some Democrats saying, no, you can't do that. So it was okay for elementary school kids, but not okay to read in the house. Now,
To
this-
adults,
Right,
supposedly.
right. So this, but it was allowed. Actually took a vote.
Right, on whether I can continue reading.
He can continue
Yes, right,
reading, and
right.
it passed. Now, I remember this some years ago when we tried to some books in the high school trying to get rid of them, the book burning. No, it wasn't. It was age-appropriate stuff. And the thing was, a rep, I can't think of his name at the time, but he had the same issue in his school district that we had ours, and he was trying to read the short story, and they wouldn't let him because it was too graphic.
Right, and
Yeah.
and parents have tried to read in school board hearings here in New
Right.
Hampshire and been
They
prevented.
couldn't- Right, but you can read them in the classroom. So how stupid is this? I mean, this is getting ridiculous. And so parents, see what your kids are reading at school. By the way, that bill,
Yeah,
it took probably a few hours total
right.
because it kept coming up. It was tabled, then it was brought off the table. Because what was happening, we have a problem with Republicans. Some vote
Attendance with the Republicans.
like, right?
Right.
Yeah. Some vote like Democrats, a few. And what happened yesterday, at the end of the day, they brought in the Democrat took it off the table because they had enough votes because too many Republicans left for the day. Okay, and they saw that. So what they did was, so it can't come back this year, can come back next year, but can't come back this year. They made the motion of
Indefinite postponement.
indefinite postponement,
Right,
which means you can't put it on another bill or anything else. So,
Right.
and that passed 187 to 162. Now remember the bill previously in 1212, that passed 188 to 187. So, so the same number of Democrats, but you can see the Republicans, a lot of them left. So
Right.
that's a problem.
yeah.
Okay.
But at least, I think we helped yesterday to raise awareness
Right.
of this issue, and hopefully parents will become more engaged and engage their local school boards, which is key to getting the problem solved.
So that's something you can do if the election's coming up. There are a couple openings for school board. Ask your school board, people are running for school board, what they feel about that bill and about obscene materials in elementary schools.
Right.
High schools, the kids are old enough usually in most cases. But I mean, in most kids, what they do, what's in the library that I can read? You know?
Right.
But elementary school and middle school, that's a big problem.
Right, and I think you raise a really good point that parents and families should be asking candidates for the school board, what is their position on that, as well as parents' rights. That's a huge issue.
And I brought that up on the previous show. Ask what we failed in the House again.
Right.
Because some people don't think parents should have any rights.
Right, but this year,
Your kid belongs to the school, belongs to the state.
right, I have a constitutional amendment that will be heard fairly soon in the House for parents' rights. So I want to, we failed on the legislative side. Let's put it into the Constitution.
But the thing is too, but like I mentioned in the previous show, is it can be done locally. Your school board can give you the parental rights you need. Okay. Also, quick, because we only have a few minutes left, let's go into some other things. HB 1049, that was a bill we got a lot of mail on.
Wow.
It was
For
to
sure.
do with houseboat moorings on Great Lakes or ponds. Darra Pond, by the way, is a Great Lake. It's more than 10 acres, so it's controlled by the state. Now, this was, everybody thought this was for Lake Winnipesaukee.
Right.
Your
Which
area.
you know.
People can put houseboats
Right.
and moor them overnight, but, you know, and then it stays there forever, and we're talking about sanitary conditions and all that. But anyway,
Yeah,
so you can't put a houseboat now in Darrah Pond.
Right.
You know, or Winnipesaukee.
Or, right.
If you
and,
put it in, you got to take it out that night.
Right. I can't remember a bill where I got more email from people about a piece of legislation.
Yeah.
And I think 99.9 were opposed to the legislation.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, if you live there, like the same thing, if you live on Darrah Pond, do you want a houseboat sitting out there? Yeah. But anyway, so that failed. I mean, it passed the ITL, inexpedient to legislate with the 324 to 53. Nobody wants it. Maybe the 53 had houseboats.
Right. Right. Yeah, they probably had houseboats. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Also, HB 1391, which came out of transportation, there's always been the thing in transportation about inspections, car inspections. Now, I remember when I first moved to New Hampshire, you had to do twice a year. And then that was, you know, did away with it once a year, and
Right.
a big uproar over that by the inspection people.
Yeah.
But now, so they tried to do away with it all a couple of years ago. But then, so this one is, if it's a new car, I mean, not new for you, but a new car, like a 2024 model that you just bought new, you don't have to have it inspected until the second year. I mean, which makes sense, but
Yeah.
the thing is usually the dealer puts an inspection sticker on for you anyway. But, yeah, but you don't have to go, I mean, but
Yeah.
it's the 6 months and you have to get inspected, you don't have to have inspected until
Right.
the
Yeah.
following year, which makes somewhat sense, but
Yeah.
the thing is, inspections don't really work. I mean, there's only a few states left that still do inspections, by the way. The thing is, because I remember years ago, I had my truck inspected, and a week after inspected, I didn't have any brakes. The problem was, luckily, it was a stick shift, so. But look what happened, but the brake line over the gas tank went, which
Oh.
nobody could see in an inspection. So the thing is, you know, do they work or not? But anyway, so that's pretty much it. Any last words there?
One important bill is going to be coming up soon: women's sports, protecting women's sports.
Yes, I was
So-
going to mention that.
Yeah.
Did you know, people, Division II, the girls track, a male as a girl
Trans
One-
woman, trans girl. Yep.
won the high jump. So, yeah, we need to fix that. Hopefully, and the thing is, we need a governor that can
Right.
fix it.
Yep.
We have this because of Governor Sununu.
That's right.
Remember that from, what, 6
Yeah.
years ago, whatever? So that's the question to ask people running for governor also, because we need to fix that at the high, especially at the high school level. You know, come on. So anyway, thank you, Glenn.
Sure.
I think we're calling
Thank
it a
you.
night, and we'll be back maybe in a couple of weeks with somebody. So, thank you all.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.